Hey guys, what is going on? It is Gear and here, and in today's video we are going to be reviewing Fairy Tail episode 16, the final showdown between Gray and Lyon. Sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy this video. So just before we get into the video, I just want to say a huge thank you to you guys for 11,000 subscribers. We have actually reached another milestone, of course, in this channel, and I gotta say thank you to you guys, of course, for being so awesome, to helping me support the channel, of course, leaving a like and even subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much, of course. We'll hopefully aim for that 20,000 soon, and the main goal, like I said before, is the 100,000. Can we reach that soon? Well, I doubt it, but of course, we'll just slowly build it up and create a better community for us Fairy Tail fans. So, without further ado, let's get right into this Fairy Tail episode 16 review. What happened at the beginning? Well, of course, I gave a quick recap of what happened in the previous episode. About, of course, Gray wanted to use Ice Shell to seal Lyon, of course, and Gray saying his final goodbyes. Just as he was about to cast Ice Shell, Natsu stops him, of course, by giving him a right punch to the face, and said, of course, that he is not, let's just say, he's not confronting his problems. He is just running away yet again, and using Ice Shell is another form of running away. Because Natsu, of course, is saying in a very angry way that he should be confronting his problems instead of running away from them, because that is what he's doing by using Ice Shell. It's just another means of running away. So, of course, after doing that, Gray gets some sense knocked into him, of course, saying for him not to easily just give up his life, just to die, just to stop Lyon, of course, and not even solve the problem. That is, of course, Lyon, because his way of thinking, of course, needs to be corrected. So it looks like, of course, Natsu gave a little bit of a knock into Gray, and it looks like Gray has finally come back to his senses. Then what happens is the temple, in the previous episode, of course, we know that it was tilted thanks to Natsu, of course, knocking out some of the pillars, but for some reason it went back up. And suddenly, of course, when that was happening, well, it looks like the other guy, whose name is Zolti, so another one of Lyon's minions, he, of course, repaired the temple. We don't know how he did it, but somehow he repaired the pillars underneath the temple, and the temple was back up to normal, so it was at equal level, so now the moonlight could go directly onto Deliora's. So of course that was very worrying, because now it means Deliora's revival is now back on track, and it looks like, of course, now the crew have to find another plan to stop this from happening. So of course, as they do that, of course, Zolti then, let's just say, goes back to Lyon, of course, saying that he fixed out the issue, and of course Natsu then, of course, chases after Zolti because he's pissed off, because he doesn't know how he did it, because Natsu did a lot of destruction to those pillars. He literally destroyed them, so he's wondering how Zolti was able to repair the pillars so that the temple could be back to being balanced. So of course, as he was chasing over Zolti, before he left, he gave some good encouragement words to Gray, where of course he said that, of course, to confront his problems, of course, and for him not to win, because it's not just bad looking for him, it is bad looking for Fairy Tail, of course. So he, of course, gave those inspirational words, and of course Gray was then pumped up to fight Lyon yet again. Then, of course, what happened is it's another showdown between Gray and Lyon. So Lyon, of course, goes in straight away for another attack, and let's just say does ice magic on him after they were talking, of course, about some other stuff. Then, of course, what happens is it looks like Gray, of course, again, he's badly damaged. And then what happens is, well, just before that, I forgot to mention. So what happened is Gray and Lyon is, let's just say they're talking. So what are they talking about? Well, it looks like Gray finally reveals that Ice Shell is taking the caster's body and transforming it into ice. So that ice that Lyon is melting using Moon Drip is literally Ur. So Lyon is killing Ur by using that magic. So of course, after Gray told Lyon, Gray said, of course, for Lyon to stop this, and let's just go back to normal, of course, so stop the revival of Deliora. But of course, let's just say in a villain-like way, Lyon already knew that, and he, of course, said that that huge chunk of ice is no longer Ur. So of course he didn't care about it whatsoever, even though he didn't know what Ice Shell was. So after hearing that, of course, Gray got pissed off, and let's just say they start to have a bit of a battle where Gray, of course, started to punch him even though he was badly wounded. And you gotta respect Fairy Tail for keeping it very PG, because even though Gray got hit by an attack by Lyon, it didn't show much blood or anything. It didn't show like a wound inside of him, even though he was badly injured. it was, let's just say, more PG, which of course you gotta respect nowadays for Fairy Tail, because let's just say other animes are not so PG nowadays. So of course, as they were fighting, it looks like of course Natsu and Zolti of course confront each other. What happens is, it looks like Zolti finally reveals to Natsu that the magic that he has been using is a lost type of magic, just like Natsu's dragon slaying magic, where he is able to forward and reverse time. So he was able to manipulate the building around him of course, and then reverse the time back for it. That is how he revived the pillars of course, and balanced out the temple. So of course, then they are just chasing one another of course. Zolti disappears and then Natsu tries to chase after him. And then it goes back to Lucy and Erza, where they are fighting off all of the minions of course that Lyon has. So of course they are fighting it around, and let's just say Erza and Lucy notice that a lot of the minions that they are fighting barely have any magic. So of course, after thinking about it that way, they say of course that there's only about 5 or 6 real people and the rest are fakes. So of course, what Lucy does is she summons Cancer, and she of course tells him to start to of course just beat up all the non-important people. So of course, as let's just say Cancer was summoned, it was a very funny moment of course, because then he went straight up to Erza of course, saying snip snip instead of his usual saying, and of course calling Erza his mistress, which of course is very interesting of course, and is another funny moment of Fairy Tail, another brilliant funny moment. Thank you very much, Fairy Tail. So what happened after that is, let's just say Natsu of course is chasing after Zolti, and Gray and Lyon of course are entering the final stages of their showdown, where Gray and Lyon of course decide to not fight with magic but to fight with fists. So of course Lyon overpowers Gray, because of course Lyon of course is perfectly fine, where Gray of course is badly injured, but they still of course have a little bit of a bout, but Lyon of course is obviously taking the upper hand and just really punches Gray into the wall. But we are introduced to another flashback of Gray, where Gray of course is young and he just remembers of course fighting Natsu, and even though he was always beating Natsu, Natsu was always saying get up, even though he was the one on the floor of course, and they would just motivate each other to keep fighting, keep pushing past their limits of course, to become much more stronger. So of course, as he was getting that flashback of course, he started to summon up the strength within him, and let's just say he started to fight back versus Lyon of course. And it looks like now, not Gray versus Lyon of course is now starting to become a little bit more interesting, because now Gray is on equal level to Lyon. Then of course it goes back to Zolti and Natsu. Natsu and Zolti of course are in the cave where Delioda is, and it looks like the moon drip ceremony is still going ahead, because what it is of course is the minion, which is a dog minion of course, he is still doing the moon drip ceremony. Even though it is very weak with just one person, he is still doing the moon drip ceremony. So that means that even though it's only one person, the ice, which of course Delioda is in, is already at its final stages. So it doesn't even matter that if one person's in it, as long as of course the moon drip ceremony is still going, that will melt the ice on Delioda and that will unleash him. So of course, after Natsu learns that, of course, he's decided of course that he needs to beat up Zolti and then beat up the person of course that is continuing on with the rituals to stop the ice from melting. So of course, it is a very interesting battle, because Natsu of course is using of course his magic, whereas Zolti of course tried to trick him by saying, are you sure you want to use your fire magic, because that will just help Delioda thaw out quicker. But then of course Natsu, with his battle senses, he of course thinks that, well, if you was fire magic that you needed, then you would have used that at the beginning instead of using moon drip magic. So of course he was saying there's no problem with me using my fire magic. Again, Natsu using his quick battle senses. Even though his normal senses are quite stupid, his battle senses are on point, and he is so, let's just say, so smart when it comes to battling, but he is not so smart when it comes to other stuff. Then of course it goes back to Gray and Lyon. They are now of course fighting it out, and of course it looks like Lyon is finally getting pushed back quite a bit. Then Lyon of course breaks a promise where they will say that they were fighting with just their fists, where Lyon of course now he uses a ice type magic of course and attacks Gray with that ice magic. So of course now Gray and Lyon of course have to fight with that ice magic yet again, and of course Gray starts to of course give Lyon some inspirational moments where, let's just say, he starts to say of course that, what did Ur teach us? she taught us, of course, that there are much more powerful wizards than Ood. So if you wanted to surpass her, of course, you shouldn't have just stuck with Ood. You should go out on your own journey. Find more people, much more powerful people, and start to surpass them, because there is not just Ood that is more powerful. Let's just say she's not the most powerful wizard in the entire world. There are a lot more people in that world. So of course, that was a little bit of an emotional moment for Gray and Lyon. Then it goes back to Lucy and Erza, of course, where they are fighting off the other minions. Then what happens is, it looks like one of the minions unrevealed themselves, and it looks like they are people from the village Braga, where Deliora, of course, attacked when he, of course, was unleashed. So of course, it looks like he was, of course, the one that destroyed their village, and it looks like they're now starting to plot some revenge by helping Lyon, of course, melt the ice that is captured Deliora. Then what happens after that, of course, is Gray and Lyon, of course, have their own little talk, and let's just say Gray now starts to use his ice magic, and let's just say he's starting to have the upper hand, because he, of course, now is not holding back. He's actually being full forward with Lyon, of course, because now, of course, he's so pissed off with everything that he's learned about him, so he's going full forward. And let's just say Lyon uses his ice magic like he normally does, and Gray, of course, uses his own ice magic to capture one of Lyon's beasts. But of course, for some reason, Lyon's magic is not as powerful as it once was, because it's not breaking out of that ice prison that Gray created. And of course, Gray mentions that with single ice type magic, of course, so using one hand, it is off balancing, of course, the magic, because you have to use both hands to fully utilize the magic and unleash your full strength. Then, of course, what happens is Gray references Lyon to the beast, of course, that he's captured in the ice prison. And then, of course, it finishes off with a very interesting note where, of course, Gray finally defeats Lyon using his ice cannon. So that is the end of the battle between Gray and Lyon. But it ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger, where, of course, Deliora, half of his ice has melted. So now Deliora unleashes such a big roar that everyone can hear it, and he is literally, let's just say, unleashed. So that was the end of the episode, of course. So it left on quite a cliffhanger. So it was a very interesting episode. You guys let me know down below, what was your favourite moment in Fairy Tail episode 16? Did you like the final moments, of course, where it was Gray versus Lyon? And are you hyped that Deliora is going to be unleashed? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel to join this awesome community that we have on this channel. And of course, thank you again for 11,000 subscribers. Thank you guys for watching. Take care and peace.